Hello, I'm Sam Menser. I'm the recording instructor and studio manager at the downtown Chattanooga Public Library's recording studio. Today, I want to talk about distortion and mainly desirable distortion. So, it's often associated with rock music, and that's pretty much because when it came to desirable distortion, guitar players were the first to really experiment in this field where they were taking their guitar amplifiers and turning them up in order to get this sort of over the top sound, this raucous sound that soon began to exemplify rock music in general. But there were definitely blues artists were also on the foray of experimenting with distortion, such as Little Walter, for example, who I'll have a link here. Little Walter actually played harmonica, and he played it into a microphone, which was then plugged into an amplifier, and he turned the amplifier up, the gain on the amplifier up to the point where the amp broke up, and that's how he got his signature tone. Link Wray in rock music is pretty popular for having a pretty over-the-top distorted tone, and he not only turned his amplifier up, but he also poked holes in the speaker cones. So I don't recommend doing that unless you have an amp that you don't care about. But in the 60s, then, you had engineers starting to manufacture what were known as fuzz boxes at the time. The Maestro fuzz tone was the first really on the market, and it was pretty much designed to mimic a faulty preamp. And these fuzz boxes of the time, Fuzz Face was one, the Fox Tone machine, and the Big Muff was another early distortion pedal. These were pedal effects that could be played with guitars or keyboards. John Lord from Deep Purple, for instance, played his organ through a Marshall amplifier cranked up. So not just guitar players were utilizing distortion. Even vocals have been distorted too. So like right now, my vocal is highly distorted. Just put a little bit of distortion on it, and it adds some intelligibility and can really make it pop in a mix. Speaking of pop, pop music is sort of thought to be very pristine and clean, very well recorded music, and there's a lot of subtle distortion used in pop music to help help crystallize parts, basically during the mixing stage in pop songs. So don't feel like you're just limited to rock music if you're talking about distortion. I'd like to showcase some of the different types of distortion we have in the studio and Pro Tools. Just to be clear, mainly what we're talking about here is harmonic distortion, and this plays on the harmonic series. Without getting too theoretical, if I play a note on guitar, it's not just the fundamental frequency that we're hearing. We're hearing integer multiples that are called harmonics. So when we emphasize these, we're increasing the definition of sounds. So that's what distortion essentially does. It just does it to the point that it yields these results that we tend to like, and it can go from like a nice warm distortion to really over the top distortion like you hear in hard rock metal music, things like that. And what we kind of want to avoid is digital distortion. At least most of the time you're trying to avoid digital distortion, which we can kind of tend to think of as clipping sounds. A lot of people who are just beginning to record into a digital system don't give themselves enough headroom, which is the space between where the system can't handle any more information and it starts to clip digitally, pops and clicks and these sounds. and then the level of our recording. So the peak of our recording, for instance, we want to leave a lot of room there so you don't create this distortion. But we can talk more about that in a different video. What I will say is a lot of the distortion that we mimic in digital systems are based on either dedicated amplifiers, so amplifier simulators, or some of those historic foot pedals, the guitar effects pedals and things. And beyond that, even preamplifiers, basically anything in the audio chain can be distorted, starting with your voice, which is the first gain stage if you're singing, or whatever that source is that you're recording. If it's a guitar amplifier, you can certainly turn up the gain there and create distortion. With your voice, it's not really the same distortion, but that is the first gain stage as well. And then we have a microphone, which could be overloaded. The preamplifier can be overloaded. And then, of course, tape. If you're working on tape, the tape machine can be overloaded. Or in a digital system, you can overload a digital system. So distortion can be created pretty much anywhere down the line. Let's take a look at some of these pedals. So just like some basic power chords, because what can tend to happen if you're playing full chords, I'll emphasize this on maybe the fuzz pedal, but sometimes all of these notes won't ring clearly because there's so much harmonic content going on that we're emphasizing. But if you're just playing, so that's just on a guitar, clean into the system, not overloading any components. This pedal here, this plug-in pedal, it comes with Pro Tools, and it's actually modeled after sort of an iconic pedal called a tube screamer, which was designed to emulate tubes on a guitar. So it's pretty bluesy kind of sound. And I'm just using some presets here, so that's not using too much overdrive. Overdrive is what you're going to use to set that that distortion level. And then you have an overall level and a tone control, which will emphasize different places on the frequency spectrum. Another one that we can look at is the white boost, and this is sort of this one is going to be a little bit more crunchy, so to speak. So kind of sounds like it's sort of a, the same type of deal, an overloaded, distorted amplifier. But all of these you can back off the gain and get a little bit more of a subtle distortion, or increase it for a more over-the-top distortion. This one is called the Black Op Distortion, and it sounds a lot like sort of the metal pedals that became the heavy metal music pedals that became popular, marketed towards metal musicians, guitarists specifically. See, a lot of distortion. If you play that's a full A minor chord. It's really hard to start picking out some of the notes. Now, Neil Young actually played very distorted with Crazy Horse and would play full chords, and it didn't sound too bad, but he's probably got a lot of vintage gear he's using. So, you can do your whole that's not my style, right? But the more distortion you have, the easier it is to approach those styles of playing. Here's a really cool one. This is a fuzz pedal. Jimi Hendrix used fuzz pedals a lot. Just a really over-the-top, buzzy distortion. Same thing. A little bit easier to kind of tell the notes there, but still not really, the best for clarity's sake. This is actually an amplifier emulator, and you can hear, you can pick out some of the individual notes easier on a full chord. So, I prefer recording with an actual amplifier, but these always work really well in a pinch, and it's one of the benefits of actually, if you're going to record a guitar, to take a direct signal as well. And what that means is just take a signal from like a splitter, a direct box, and have that go through into an amplifier, mic the amplifier, and then take the signal and also record it directly into the system with just a clean signal. Because then what you can do later on down the line is, if you're not happy with that guitar tone, you can run that direct signal into an amplifier and utilize a technique called reamping, and then it's just like that direct signal went right into the amplifier in the first place. So very cool technique to save for down the line. Now, sometimes you might not have amps at your disposal, so there's a lot of great emulators out there, and I encourage you to try out some different ones here at the library, but also try some demos out there and have fun with it. Use distortion on different things. Don't think that it just has to be a guitar being distorted. And if you think about what we talked about before with modulation, then combining, you have crazy stuff like this. Thanks for watching. I hope this was interesting, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.